This is the Man in a Room podcast.
This is Man in a Room. It is a podcast, You're listening to Man in a Room.
Hello and thank you for joining me for this episode of Man in a Room. How is it going? Do you know, just as I was about to record this episode, I crossed my legs and I sort of shoved my legs underneath the desk. And I need to move because it doesn't feel right. It just feels, I don't know, my knee was sticking too hard in the back of my knee, my leg pit, if you would, like, you know, the bit of your elbow, the opposite part of your elbow, that bit there. I don't know what that is, but that part of my leg. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Coming up later, we've got the return of Tarot and Tea, and I'm happy to announce that I'm going to be paying attention to the upside down cards. Because people keep saying, oh, you're not paying attention to the how come none of the cards that you've got are upside down? Well, it's because I was turning them the right way up. So, I'm just going to give them a quick shuffle. Going to get the energy from the people who this is for. Come on, close your eyes. Think. All right, this one might be for you. That's coming up a bit later on. Today I want to talk to you about something that I'm watching on television at the minute. I'm watching a TV show called Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. Now, it's quite simple. The premise is that it's a detective agency called Randall and Hopkirk. In the very, very first episode, Hopkirk was run down by a motor because he was a witness to a crime. And he was mown down, and so he died. But then he came back to Randall as a ghost, as Hopkirk Deceased. He came back as a ghost. Only his partner can see him. And it's just exactly what you'd expect it to be. It was filmed in 1969, I believe. It ran for one series, a detective agency where one of them is a ghost. And I don't know, it's just one of those shows that I just absolutely adore. I love watching it. It's actually really sort of smartly done and all that kind of stuff, you know. Considering it's like made in 1969, it's like, okay, so can he walk through walls? No, it's too expensive. So what we'll do, we'll dress him up in a white suit, like white shoes. Literally everything he's wearing is going to be white, and only Randall can see him. Jeff Randall is the only one who can see him. It's Marty Hopkirk. So Jeff is the only guy who can see him, and there's Marty running around full of energy, like, oh, I can't walk through this sofa. I have to walk around it and all that kind of stuff. We won't go into the specifics of him sitting down. He does sit down quite a bit inside Jeff's car. Okay, so he's sitting down in Jeff's car, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, he sees his ex-wife. Oh, his widows. Oh, it's Jeannie. Oh, it's Jeannie Hopkirk. Ah, bless her. And he's sort of running around, sort of like, oh, it's Jeannie. She can't hear me, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, he's cracking cases. Obviously, he can walk through walls. They just don't show it. He's also able to just like teleport or jump cut, like jump, he's gone, and then he appears somewhere else. And it's actually very well done, considering for the time. It's like the actors are able to stand still so well, and it's just like pause, run away, unpause, there we are, it's gone, and it just doesn't mess the flow up. They hardly move. They must like pause it, and then he runs out. But yeah, it's quite interesting, I think anyway. And what I find really interesting is the fact that they've got so many different tropes that they've used. It's like they go to a psychic, and a psychic can see Marty Hopkirk. Oh, you can see Marty Hopkirk. You can see Marty Hopkirk, because Jeff was in trouble one day and he needed to get help because he's in a perilous situation where he was going to die. Jeff Randall was going to die, and so he's like, Marty, you've got to help me. You've got to get someone's attention. I don't know, Jeff. Who do I know? Oh, what about that psychic? Go to see a psychic and they can raise the alarm. The psychic raises the alarm, no questions asked, and all that kind of stuff. And there's another one where another man is getting haunted by another ghost because he apparently is like a gangster. Bear in mind, this is set in England. This mafia guy is being haunted by a guy that he murdered. And he keeps using his poltergeist ways to try and kill this guy. And it's up to Marty to stop him. It's just all this kind of... He's dressed as a cowboy. dressed like head to toe in white as a ghost cowboy, and then you can see Jeff Randall looking at Marty Hopkirk as he's getting beaten up by this cowboy, and we don't see the cowboy doing the beating up. We see what Jeff is seeing. So you see Marty like flying around like, oh, I'm being punched in the stomach. Oh, I'm being punched in the face. Oh, and it's one of the things that always interested me about ghosts is how come they're able to stand on the floor. Just interesting. I've seen enough. Well, I mean, Ghostbusters, they didn't really walk around on the floor, did they? They were sort of flying around, and they were made of slime. But that could just be Slimer. But yes, I'm watching this. It's one of those shows I'm trying to get through, because there's many famous TV shows that are out and about now, on demand, and so it's now possible to just watch all the episodes of stuff. So far, I've watched all of The Good Life. I've watched all of Porridge. And I'm just trying to tick off as many different famous classic British TV shows that I can, and Randall and Hopkirk is one of those. It's that sort of campy kitsch late 60s thing. Everyone's smoking, everyone's sort of driving around fast in their cars, drinking, being sexist, calling everyone love and darling, and But yeah, so I enjoy that show. This is one of those sort of shows that, if they try, I think they did try and remake it in the 90s with Vic and Bob. It didn't really work for me, though. I that's what got me into watching the original series, but then I watched the Vic and Bob one because I love Vic and Bob. Always have done. Bob Mortimer always makes me laugh. And the problem is that I think when I then watched the original, I was like, well, it doesn't compare, does it really? That weird sort of early 2000s Vic and Bob when they were off the boil slightly. But still funny. They're still funny to this day, but they weren't as funny doing this stuff, obviously, because they weren't doing that wacky humour that they used to. It's more of a double act. It's like when Ant and Dec did that film, Alien Autopsy. And I think they also they got Ant and Dec to do an episode of The Likely Lads. Because that was, double. Don't even know what Ant and Dec is. Ant and Dec are basically this double act that has been around since the 90s. And basically they're in a TV show called Biker Grove. And they played PJ and Duncan, and they ended up being quite popular with the girl fan base of Biker Grove, and so they basically became like pop stars. And they're like, what do we call? They were called PJ and Duncan, but they were like, well, actually, can we call ourselves Ant and Dec, please? And so they started calling themselves Ant and Dec, and then they basically are now like the biggest property in English television. But yeah, they did a version of The Likely Lads, which I have no interest in watching. Because I've heard stories about the double act. They aren't as nice as you'd expect them to be. Some double acts you can tell get on. Ant and Dec definitely. The Likely Lads didn't. And so it's all an act. But anyway, let's move on from that. This is not very interesting stuff, but I just love watching Randall and Hopkirk. So anyway, this means that it's now time for Tarot and Tea. It's a beverage and divinity, yeah. So I'm going to shuffle the cards, and I'm going to just talk to you about my cup of tea that I've got. I've got a lovely cup of Twining St. Clements. And basically what that is basically oranges. It's an orange-flavoured beverage. It's like drinking hot squash. It is literally like drinking hot squash. Let's give it a quick old sip. Here we go. The ASMR. Orangey. Still a bit hot, actually. But, yeah. So, let me just move some stuff around here on. Just give me a second. I've just got to just move that. There we are. That's better. Right. So I'm going to shuffle the old cards, and it's going to go well. Right, so, as before, I'm going to be drawing 3 cards, and it's going to be the past, present, and future. Obviously, don't take it too seriously. This is just me being a bit silly. So, the first card that we have is the Reversed Tower. So, basically, what people say is that if a card is reversed or is upside down, it means the opposite. So, these people are falling up a tower. So, normally they're falling down a tower. These are falling up a tower. So rather than to their death, they're flying to their life. So I'd say maybe it's rebirth or something like that. They literally look like they're just having a bit of a... It actually looks like the scene, from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. No, Willy... Yeah, I can't remember what it's called now. The thing with, when they've got the farting stuff that they're just, let's fart and go around and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Yeah, so it might even sort of, I would say probably, it's about averting disaster, and, it's not as bad as it is. And maybe, it could be like a fear of change, maybe something like that. Because I'm just going by the fact that you were falling down, now you're falling up. So yeah, it's a bit. That's the past. So if you've been having like fear of change and that kind of stuff, it could be better. So let's see the current. Oh, it's another upside down card, which is fun. This is upside down the sun. So I can see here on the upside down version, there's someone riding a horse naked. I mean, why are you riding a horse naked? That's a bit weird. There's all these sunflowers around there, and it's a beautiful card if I could see it the right way up, but I can't. Yeah, I think it's quite a happy card. So it's probably a bit of a sad one. This. So if you're going through, I don't know, maybe like a temporary depression, or like you just I don't know, maybe like all that kind of like a temporary depression. So you got a temporary depression brought on from the fear of change, and change is coming up possibly, and so so the future is going to hold this. Oh, it's another upside down card. It's not a good one. It's justice. Ooh, it's basically somebody here in a red cape or cloak with a sword, and they're looking pretty. Maybe justice won't be served, but because it's upside down, you see. This is why I don't do them upside down, because it's a bit depressing. So basically, from going from what I say, as the story's being told, fear of change, going for a bit of a depression at the minute, and so possibly the future may hold for you legal problems, bigotry, unfairness, and dishonesty. I'm not reading it from a sheet of paper. Shut your face. But yeah, so cheery, 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 cheery. But on the other hand, it could mean that you could, if you're Australian, it's much better, isn't it? But anyway, that was a very depressing tarot and tea. It's a beverage and divinity. Gonna have another quick sip of my tea because it's still really hot. Oh, that's still really hot. So anyway, I'll be back after this very short break.
If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, please do not hesitate to send them to show@maninaroom.co.uk.
So I just had a memory from a while back of my first ever mobile phone, and I want to share it with you because I remember the day very, very well. When I first got it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So basically, it was a Sagem MW3020. I know, right? Everybody had those. No, they didn't. Everyone had Nokias. I had a Sagem MW3020. It was a very strange, ergonomic kind of phone. It was very curvy. Had like an hourglass figure. I had like a little antenna that popped out the top. And I remember I got it for when I was at college, I believe, because obviously I was going to and from college. I want to make sure that I was able to, ring my mum and my dad if I needed to, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember very specifically one of the features of that drew me to it the most was because it let me use the internet from my phone. This like early days. This basic mobile phone internet, which I still in my heart has a special place. It's called WAP, WAP. Unfortunately, it has a slightly different meaning now, but WAP was all the rage back then, and I remember it being really cool. And I remember sort of being like, "Hey everybody, does anyone want to know the news? I'm going to look it up on my phone." And people were like, "What?" "Yeah, that's right. I've got the news on my phone." And so basically, the internet didn't have color. It was basically black or white. So basically the images would have to be this sort of weird, like a black and white image. And there's no greys, no nothing. It's worse graphics than a Game Boy, pretty much. And I remember I was very excited about this. I even had my own WAP site. I was like, yeah, got my own WAP site so you can, there it is. There's my little part of the internet. And there it is. Like, oh, do you see my website? Or, sorry, my WAP site. There we are. And I remember the first time I ever used a mobile phone, actually. The first time I was like, oh my goodness. So I can ring people from inside the house. That's really cool. And then I was like, okay, how far can I go? So I walked away from my house. And I live in rural right at the time in rural Norfolk, and there was literally no mobile phone reception where I lived. That was a common thing, unfortunately. Even to this day, rural Norfolk does not have great mobile phone reception. And I just remember the first time I sort of got quite far away. I was like, oh my goodness, there's an actual mobile phone tower there. I'm going to stand next to that, or with my 3 bars of 2G or 1G or whatever you want. It's just called reception back then. There's no different Gs. I mean, now, I've been on 2G, 3G, 4G. 4G is like broadband. It's actually sometimes quicker than my actual internet, but back then it's like, oh, look at this. And it didn't used to cost you anything to use the, there was no such thing as data. You basically just used it, and it was actually really good. Well, from what it was worth. I remember one of my earliest uses for it was I was able to get mobile phone updates from Big Brother 2. I was very excited about that. They had a mobile phone website, so you can keep up to date with all the stuff that's going on in Big Brother on Channel 4 in 2001. Exciting stuff, you know. You can get text messages, you can check out their website and all that kind of stuff. And I actually remember some years later, the first time, I think I was on 3. This was some years later when there's like, oh, you can actually have videos. Like, well, you can download video off the internet. That's crazy. And I remember the first time I ever managed to do a video call. I remember very, very distinctly. We were driving past Asda, me and my sister. I think I was in the front of the car and she was in the back of the car. And it was expensive to do this. But we thought, let's try it. Let's see if we can do a video call. And we had a very, very brief video call. And like, yeah, how cool is this? Yeah, this is awesome. And yeah, it was definitely an experience. Being part of the last generation to not have mobile phones. In fact, only last year, I used not a mobile phone. I used a public phone box, which I've not. There's no need to use a phone box this day and age. And I just thought I got some money in my pocket. Let's just ring. So I rang my sister up. I was like, "Hello, sister. I'm ringing you from a phone box." And it's quite funny, really, because it was really expensive to use. I say really expensive. It was expensive-ish. It's more than it used to be, more than like the 10 or 20p you used to have. It was like 50p for a call or something like that. And the doot, you could keep hearing all that kind of thing. And the smell was the same, but I really did not like the idea of putting my ear on the handset. I was like, ooh, keep that far away. It's just this big clunky thing. I was like, I don't know what on earth this has been, this is the thing. But the thing is, though, that because that was last year I did that, since I made that phone call, that phone box has actually been deactivated and has been removed by BT. And yeah, it's just how quickly things change all those years. I mean, you very rarely see phone boxes, but then again, no one really uses them because it's very cheap to get a phone. Phones are like dirt cheap. A SIM card is dirt cheap. There's actually no need to actually use phone boxes. It's more hygienic not to use a phone box. Although some people say the most germs on anybody is actually on their mobile phone, so who knows? But yeah, it's just one of those things really that just popped in my head. This phone, I can still picture it perfectly. Look it up. The Sagem MW3020. What a great phone that was. And how we've come on now. Jeez, I mean, you can now stream HD high quality videos from your phone wherever you are, more or less. Madness. The fact that my mum now has a smartphone. My mum has a smartphone and she's able to take photographs and videos and just send them to us, and it doesn't matter. It's crazy. But anyway, before I go, I just want to say, see everyone next week. But before I go, I want to leave you with this. That was my mouth. Bye.
Who is the man? Where is the room? It's some guy you've never heard of, in a room you've never been in. For more information, head over to maninaroom.co.uk.